As many of you already know by now, you have heard and maybe even seen a lot of white people now claiming, speaking about white culture this and white culture that, and stop being anti-white this and anti-white that. And but when they get questioned on what white culture is, they tap dance around it every single time, like they never know how to properly define it. So I decided to ask ChatGPT to define for me what is white culture. Now let me just show you, like, all the screenshots that I'm gonna read off to you, nothing is edited. This is what came straight from ChatGPT when I asked them. I just simply asked them what it is, and then it broke it down into sections. So when I asked them what was white culture, it stated, the term white culture is complex and controversial, and its meaning can vary greatly depending on context, historical, geographic, social, and political. Here are a few key ways it is understood. The first one is sociological perspective in the context of the US. In the United States, white culture often refers to the dominant cultural norms and values associated with white Americans of European descent, particularly those of Anglo or Western European origin. This includes language, the standard American English, values, individualism, competition, self-reliance, quote, rugged independence, aesthetics, European standards of beauty and fashion, institutions, legal systems, educational structures, religious traditions such as Protestant Christianity, and customs and holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, emphasis on nuclear family. This framing is often used in critical race theory or diversity work to describe norms that are taken for granted in institutions, norms that may advantage white people while marginalizing others. The second part is European heritage. White culture may also refer to the cultural heritage of European peoples, which includes languages, French, German, Italian, Russian, etc., philosophy, Greek, Roman Enlightenment thinkers, or Plato, Locke, or Descartes, art and music, classical music, Renaissance art, Western literary canon, cuisine, French, Italian, Irish, German, and other European food traditions, religions, Christianity, Catholicism, Protestantism, Orthodox traditions. In this view, white culture is really a broad umbrella for many distinct ethnic cultures such as Irish, Polish, and Greek, not a singular monolith. Then you have part 3 that says critique of the term. Many scholars argue that white culture as a unified thing doesn't truly exist, that it is an artificial construct used to obscure ethnic diversity among white people, normalize whiteness as the default invisible culture, and reinforce white supremacy by positioning white as the baseline against which all others are judged. In this view, white culture is more about power and dominance than about shared traditions or practices. I think now we're getting into the part where when we ask them to define what white culture is and why they're scared to actually say what it is because of this part right here. But I think part 4 also plays another huge layer to it as well. Part 4, white nationalist usage, warning. In extremist or white nationalist circles, white culture is often invoked to promote racial purity or xenophobic ideals, claiming that white Western civilization is superior or under threat. This usage is rooted in racism and ethno-nationalism and is widely condemned. Now, this is interesting. That's why I said part 4 is interesting, because you got to think about that return of the land, that whites only settlement that they're creating. I did a live stream about that. Then you have them saying that there's anti-white or white people are being replaced. Remember, they did that whole great replacement theory a couple years ago. And that's where, in my opinion, this really comes into play. And you hear them say a lot of those kind of phrasings and words as of late, whether on social media, on television, or some of them, if they have the balls to say it, possibly in person. In summary, there is no single universally agreed definition of white culture. Depending on context, it can refer to the norms of dominant white societies, especially in the US, a generalization of European cultural heritage, a social construct used in race and power analysis, or a term misused by extremists for harmful ideologies. And that's pretty much what it is. That's all that came up when I typed in what is white culture. That was pretty much everything that it boiled down to. But like I said, I believe sections 3 and 4 are the ones that when you ask them to define it, that's the part that they don't like to talk about, because that's a part of their history they try to erase. And then it links to us. So The thing is, that's why they don't like us that much, is because we're linked to them in some capacity, and we are, I guess you could say, we are the reflection of what their ancestors did to us, and then we are also in current day still the reflection of their own white supremacy still at work here. And as long as we are in existence in their eyes, they will never actually mentally be free of us, so to speak.
But wait, there's more.
Now, y'all know I was not going to sit up here and talk about white culture or ask ChatGPT about white culture and not spin the block and then ask them about Black American culture and what that is defined as. Now, this one was very, very interesting. Black American culture, often referred to as African American culture, is a rich and evolving cultural tradition rooted in the experiences of descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States. It is distinct from African or Caribbean cultures, though it shares some historical and spiritual connections with both. Rather than being monolithic, Black American culture encompasses a broad set of values, artistic expressions, social norms, political traditions, and lived experiences, shaped by centuries of resilience, creativity, and resistance to systemic racism. Already just reading just the overview part, the introduction, it already sounds like something you definitely already want to continue to read and going forward with. Good thing you have me, because that's exactly what we're about to do. Core aspects of Black American culture. Number 1, historical foundation. Slavery from 1619 to 1865. Enslaved Africans developed community, language, and culture under oppression. Reconstruction and Jim Crow. Continued resistance, survival, and cultural expression despite segregation. The Great Migration from 1916 to 1970. Millions moved from the rural South to northern cities, shaping music, politics, and identity. And the Civil Rights and Black Power movements. Major cultural and political awakenings in the 20th century. Language and communication. AAVE, or African American Vernacular English, also known as some people as Ebonics or slang, a legitimate dialect with unique grammar and vocabulary, oral tradition such as storytelling, call and response, and expressive speaking styles, and slang, like I just mentioned, and innovation. Black Americans have been central in shaping modern American slang and interest language. What if I told y'all about us, FBA, that we are the trendsetters of the globe? This right here literally just backed up what I've been saying for years. That's because we are. We define and set trends all the time. And as we continue to go through, you're going to see more of what I mean by that. Music and performing arts. Music is one of the most influential components of Black American culture. Spiritual, gospel, and blues rooted in slavery and church traditions, jazz, soul, funk, and R&B, innovations of the 20th century, hip-hop and rap, global cultural force since the 1970s, and dance. From tap and break dancing to TikTok challenges, dance remains central. Black Americans have historically created entire genres that have become foundational to American music. Family and community. Extended kinship, grandparents, cousins, or play cousins, and community members are often considered family. Church as a hub, especially at one point in time, historically the center of spiritual life, activism, and support. And of course, the phrase "it takes a village" mentality. The emphasis on shared responsibility for raising children and community well-being. Religion and spirituality. Christianity, especially Baptist and AME churches, plays a huge role. Black church traditions include powerful oratory, gospel music, and activism. Other practices such as Islam, especially the Nation of Islam, African spiritual practices, and syncretic beliefs have growing importance. Food, or soul food. Rooted in Southern cooking and African traditions, fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, black-eyed peas, sweet potatoes. I know somebody just got hungry after me reading that. Use of scraps turned into flavorful, sustaining dishes. And food is also about family gatherings, storytelling, and culture sharing. I mean, it's become so crazy and so interesting that they literally made a movie back in the 90s called Soul Food. Go figure. Fashion and style, going back to what I said about setting these trends. Self-expression through clothing, hair, and jewelry has deep cultural meaning. Natural hair movement, braids, froze, and locks, streetwear, sneaker culture, black luxury aesthetics, and style as resistance and cultural pride. And it's crazy, as I was reading each and every one of those bullet points, an image popped in my head somewhere in some form of fashion, ironically, that I could think of, whether I saw it in a magazine, whether I saw it on television, or in a movie, or even in a music video for that matter. Or think about it, when they talk about hair, them hair shows, they literally are the cornerstone for black women when it comes to cosmetology. And that's why a lot of people are mad that black women don't have the cornerstone when it comes to hair care. Just look at those hair shows, especially back in the day. Don't believe me? Go look at some of them hair show clips. They're on YouTube from like back in like the 90s and early 2000s. It's amazing how they could turn something as simple as hair into art. And speaking of art, literature, and media. The Harlem Renaissance, you have people like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston. Black arts movement, Amiri Baraka and Nikki Giovanni. Contemporary voices, you had Toni Morrison, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Ava DuVernay, Beyonce, and Kendrick Lamar. Black culture continues to drive mainstream media and aesthetics. That is 1000% correct. Again, going back to what I was saying about trends, and us as being the trendsetters of the world. People may hate us and everything like that, but you will not deny our presence. It's felt and seen everywhere around the globe. Social and political traditions. Activism has always been core, from Frederick Douglass to Black Lives Matter, even though BLM is not anywhere where it at once was in its I guess you could say its foundation, at its core. Political self-determination, mutual aid, and community organizing are strong traditions. And cultural figures often double as political voices, even though some of the people in there, we kind of side-eye a few of them, but hey, it is what it is. And the last one is cultural values. Common values include resilience and survival, pride in identity and heritage, collective uplift and solidarity, creativity and self-expression, faith and spirituality, and joy and celebration, even amid hardship. And especially on that last one, because sometimes I will come across videos on Instagram where you'll have black people just doing something. I saw a video where it was some black men, I guess they was at a pool party, or maybe it's a cookout, I'm not sure, but it was a pool there, and all of them were doing their, I guess you can say, their hood Olympic dives or jumps into the pool one by one. It had to be like 10 of them, and it's crazy, like people just made a whole thing out of it, like it was just like a joyous occasion. That's one thing I like about black people, is that we'll turn something so small into this big extravagant thing. Remember, I did that video where Lauren Witzke was hating on them black people on that cruise when all they were doing was backflips and cartwheels and just entertaining themselves while on the boat, and there was nothing but a crowd of black people circling them, cheering, applauding, and pulling their phones out and just having a good time. That's what I mean with that joy and celebration, even amidst hardship, because it could be something going on back at home, but when they was on that boat, and I'm using that as an example, you wouldn't know, with the way that they was laughing and carrying on and having a good time. So when it's all said and done, I think it's obvious that, I'm just gonna be honest here. We have the better culture. FBA has the culture. We are the ones moving the needle. And I think it's high time that a lot of black people, especially a lot of black Americans, just get in the habit of it. And I think with us delineating from a lot of the bullshit, that actually helps out a lot, and then gets us back center, or get us back into that space that we have been away from for so long. And a lot of people, a lot of outsiders, a lot of tethers rather, hate it. But it is what it is. We've been getting hated on since the inception. What's going to change now in 2025 that wasn't there in 1925? Not a damn thing. The only thing that changes is the date, the time, the time period, the century, the decade, whatever. But at the end of the day, we got the juice, and everybody else just wants a sip of what we have in our glass. Y'all let me know what you think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.